I'm Judy Glasser. I'm your district clerk for the Niagara Falls Board of Education, and I'm here with Becky Holliday, who is the administrator for school business services for the City of Niagara Falls City School District, and that means it's time to talk about the budget and the annual vote coming up May 17th. Becky, how are you?
I'm great, Judy, and thank you for having me today. It's an exciting time of year for us, and it's a busy time of year as well. So.
It sure is, but an important time. So we always do this annually to make sure that the residents of Niagara Falls understand the budget, understand what they're voting on, and who their candidates are for the Board of Education. You've got a PowerPoint to walk us through.
I do, and if you don't mind, we would jump right into that.
Let's do it.
We can.
Okay.
There we go. And obviously, the first slide just explains that you will be voting on May 17th of this year, and you'll be voting on our spending plan for the 22-23 upcoming school year. The most important aspect to keep in mind is that some of our funding comes from the taxpayers in the form of the tax levy on property taxes. Our proposed budget does not increase the tax levy for, this is the 8th year in a row.
It is the 8th year in a row, but I believe there's only been one tiny rise in that, going all the way back to 1994, if I'm not mistaken.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
From 94 until 2013, the levy was stable at $25,076,688. Now it rose to $25,828,989 in 2014,
right.
And we will not be raising the tax levy again.
Beautiful.
Now about our budget, a little bit of history. We are currently operating at $153 million. This current budget, there was no increase from the previous year. So we were able to keep our budget stable. This upcoming budget, we are proposing an increase of $11,747,608. But that, in essence, represents 2 years' worth of growth.
Right.
It's a 7.7% increase, but last year there was a 0%. So even though costs increased from the prior year to the current year, we were able to keep the budget stable due to all of the stimulus funding we had received.
Right.
So,
well, and we all know that everything is costing quite a bit more right now.
It does. And so this budget reflects that, yet we're able to do this without an increase to the tax levy. Now we're going to take a good look at our revenues. Most of our revenues come in the form of state aid. So our levy and our property taxes and other local taxes, which include consumer utility bills, pilots, payments in lieu of taxes that are granted through the IDA, that revenue amount is staying relatively stable. The state aid has increased, though, about $12 million, which is what is funding our increase in the budget. So again, it's no impact on the taxpayer, on the local taxpayer.
Right, and important to point out there, I think that the voters voting on what can be spent.
Correct.
So an approved budget means that's what we can spend and nothing more. So if the budget were to fail and this state says here's $12 million, we couldn't spend it.
Well, right, we would have to work on a contingency budget, and we'll get to that later in the presentation. But we do plan to use a little bit of our reserves, but this is prescribed by the source of the reserve. We received money when we did debt service borrowing, so we received premiums, and those are to be spent on debt payments. So we have allocated that, but other than that, and a little bit of fund balance, that's the only local source being drawn from our savings, per se.
Wonderful.
And again, to look at the revenues based on a graphic, you can see that 80% is from the state. Local revenues are 17%. Our use of reserves, our savings, is less than 0.5%. So that's a good sign for the district. We're putting ourselves in a good position to be able to fund our our programs in upcoming years as the stimulus money goes away.
Right. You know, it's a function of where we are, too, where we live, that we do get such a high percentage of our funding from the state, because more affluent communities don't get that percentage.
That's absolutely true. So, again, this is just another visual to demonstrate how much of the revenue source comes from the state. And some revenue highlights, as I mentioned, state aid did increase $12 million. $8.7 million of that is attributable to foundation aid. Foundation aid is a formula-based aid, and they have not fully funded foundation aid in previous years, but the governor has a plan to fully fund it through by 23-24 school year, and this is one step of that full funding that's being made available to us.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that really is a result of a years-long lawsuit, the campaign for fiscal equity.
Correct.
So there have been people in districts like ours working behind the scenes, oh my gosh, I think it's been almost 15 or 20 years trying to get that funding formula to be honored.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it was enacted and then never fully funded as it was written. And
Right.
there have been multiple lawsuits over the years and a lot of lobbying on behalf of districts similar to us. Mostly affects small city school districts, I've noticed, but they are making good on that formula, and this is an indication that we will be fully funded in, subsequent
Make
years.
a big difference.
It will make a big difference for our students. State aid also includes BOCES aid. BOCES is a reimbursable aid. On what we spend, we get a fraction of that back. And our increase is attributable to our purchase of new laptops this year. We purchased laptops for all the teachers and for all secondary students in the district.
Very important, as we learned through COVID, how
Yes.
important it is
Yes.
for those laptops to be efficient and safe and protected.
It's very true, and we have been able to really apply a lot of the upcoming budget to technology as well. So we feel that we're in a really good place, that we can react to anything, any situation, and keep learning intact for our students. Our use of fund balance, again, is minimal in our reserves. Federal stimulus money has helped to put us in the position we're in. That money does start to go away. June 23 will be the last funding for the CARES 2, the second round of stimulus, and the American Rescue Plan will run through September of 2024, but we are positioning ourselves in this year's budget, and we have plans for subsequent years to make that transition seamless without any impact on program.
Right, wonderful. So we're not dependent on it, and let's hope let's hope we don't have any
Yes.
more crises that
Yes.
require such a stimulus.
I agree. That would be the ideal. So now the biggest thing that everyone's going to vote on, as you mentioned, is how much we are able to spend. Now, if we take all of the current year programs and staffing and roll them forward, plus we have some small additions and adjustments, we will be spending $164,895,787. Again, this is all being funded without any impact to the local taxpayer. There's no increase to the tax levy. We have to break out the budget in a three-part format. It's administrative, capital, and program. Administrative is all of your support clerks, your secretaries, your principals, persons in our building, the administration building, your payroll and accounts payable, all
Right.
of those items. That makes up the smallest portion of our budget at approximately 10%. Capital is basically what it takes to keep our buildings running. Okay, it's all the improvements to our buildings, it's our debt service, which is basically our mortgage payments on the improvements that we've made. It's the maintenance staff, all the maintenance supplies and those items. That makes up about 20% of our budget. The balance of about 70% is all in program, and that's where it should be.
Right,
We are all
exactly.
about teaching and learning, and it's like $113 million, almost $114 million of this spending plan, it goes directly towards programming. That's all of our teachers, supplies, transportation, services that we provide to students or, to the schools to service students. Again, this is a look at the three-part budget, a graphic, and it just is a good illustration. It's nice to see a visual. The projected expenditures by type, being a service industry, the biggest cost is in salary and wages.
Of course.
And
sure.
benefits.
We don't sell products.
No.
We're all about people.
We are
So,
a people
yeah.
business, correct. And our people are our biggest asset. So that, of course, is going to be our biggest expense as well. Other than that, we have transportation expense, debt service, again, like I said, was our mortgage payments and the upkeep of our buildings.
And we have a lot of buildings.
We do.
Compared to most districts.
Correct.
We have a lot of buildings. We still have 11 schools, right?
Yes.
Am I not
Yes.
mistaken?
No, you're
Plus
not mistaken.
The central office and all,
Yep.
so we do have a big physical footprint in the city.
We do, and one thing I'm very proud of is that the superintendent and our Board of Education make our buildings available to the community as often as possible, and I think that goes a long way towards helping the community and also giving our students opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
Absolutely, and they're in great shape. I mean, the
Yes.
schools are kept in really good order, compliant with ADA, safety measures, all of that, as well as much technology as we can afford to give to help those students get to that level to be able to compete when they go out working. They do a very nice job.
They do a great job in our district, and like you said, it's a big footprint. There's a lot of property to take care of.
Yes.
There's a lot of moving parts,
Yeah.
and we have been very fortunate to have the team we have and to have the support we get from both the community, the Board of Education, and the superintendent
Absolutely.
to make everything, the
As
way
it
it
should
is.
be.
Yes. Another big portion of our budget is for tuitions. Now, these are tuitions that we pay to other districts and private placements for children with special needs.
Right.
And this gives them the best opportunity it can that we can provide to them, depending on the situation. Other is just different contracts, our liability insurance, all of those necessary evils that go
Right.
into.
Same as anybody's household.
Yes.
You have to have those
Exactly.
insurances and so on.
And that's just miscellaneous supplies and things like that. And capital improvements are in this year's budget, which they normally haven't been. What this is we have our community education center. It's a multi-use building. The community uses it for various reasons. We have records stored there. We will have our Head Start program being housed there, a portion of the Head Start program. We have various offices there, and we do not get aid on that. So
Right.
when we do a capital project, we do not generate state aid, and we are in need of a roof and a fire suppression system since we want to house some Head Start and we have our
Sure.
records.
I think if memory serves, I think that building was built in 1955, so it's
You have
older
a
than I
better
am.
memory than I do
Well,
then, Judy.
I'm a
didn't
bit
know
of
that.
a history buff about our district, but I'm pretty sure that's a 1955 building. So, yeah, certainly from time to time, it's going to need upgrades. It's going to need things like a roof, just like your home.
Exactly, and if we can invest that money now and, make that building last another 20, 30 years to add programming and to just service the community, I think it's a really great investment.
Right. Well, and you mentioned, and we should probably just hit on that a little bit for people who aren't paying close attention, maybe they don't have children in the schools. We are now running the Head Start in our
Yes.
city, which is amazing. It was through the county for many years, and then it was through another group, and
Yes.
there was a need. It was put out to bid. The district bid on it and received that contract with the federal government to run Head Start. It's really remarkable.
It really is, and that was another effort that wasn't very easy. There was a lot of time put into that effort and a lot of work, and it's coming to fruition right now, which is very good for the community again. And we
Yeah.
plan to expand on that, and hopefully this is one step in that direction.
Excellent to get the students that young, so they're with us in the same curriculum, in the same community all the way through. I think it's really a benefit to students.
It is, and this way there's so much research that shows the younger you can reach a student and
Yeah.
give them the tools and the support they need to be successful, the more likely they are to graduate and go on to be successful
Absolutely.
in the community.
It's a great
So-
thing, and a big help to parents who can't be home all the time.
Exactly.
You know, as well.
Yes. So this is our spending plan. And again, this is a graphic of the spending plan, a nice visual that shows the percentage of salary and wages, benefits, capital improvements, debt service, tuitions, transportation, and the other categories we spoke of. Some of the highlights, we do have an increase of 1.7 million in salaries and benefits. Now that, though, is based on $58 million worth of salaries. So that's a lot of salaries. That's a lot of people. It takes a lot of people to run the district. We are bringing back staff that was previously funded in that CARES, the stimulus funding.
Right.
So we're bringing them back this year, again, without any real impact to the budget or the taxpayers, which is all based on really good planning from, subsequent years and from prior administration.
Right.
Pension costs, one has increased, one has decreased, so we see an overall decrease, but it's pretty stable between the two. Our health care, we're very fortunate. We only expect it to rise overall about 1.5%, which is pretty unheard of in
Yeah,
this.
that's really outstanding.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We've been very fortunate in that regard, too. Transportation, we're estimating the cost of the increase. They put out, it increases by the Consumer Price Index. For transportation, that is posted later this month. But we have a good estimate and a good history of where we need to be for our transportation costs. So I think 4.7% was a good increase on that line. BOCES, we're going to spend still more in the upcoming year, and this time we're going to be replacing all of the smart boards
Oh,
in
yeah.
the district.
Boy, I remember when they were,
Yes.
it was the new thing, and we bought
Yeah.
all these interactive whiteboards. That was a long time ago.
It was, and they've serviced our district really well.
Oh, sure.
But now we're going to a casting environment where it's a little more mobile. The teachers will be able to move around the room a little more. The students will be able to cast to the smartboard from their seats. So it's a really good investment, and this is the time to do it.
And this is the way business will be collaborating.
Absolutely.
When students get out to what they call the real world. I don't know what's not real about being a student, but when they're working for a living or collaborating, these are the kinds of things they're going to have to be proficient in.
Absolutely. And like I said, we're doing everything we can to position ourselves for the future. And our team does a great job with that. Capital improvements, again, is the roof at Community Education Center along with the fire suppression system. And there's various increases to contracts, again, based on cost of living increases, and everybody's contracts are basically looking to go up a little bit, and it's very understandable, and this includes even our insurance and everything,
Of course.
that lump sum.
We all see it with our household bills.
I know.
They don't go down.
No, they
never
don't.
go down.
No. Nope. And again, I just want to reiterate that this budget will require a simple majority. Since we are not exceeding the tax cap, in fact, we could have raised taxes a little over $1 million without needing a supermajority.
Right.
But our board and superintendent, being good fiscal stewards, realized that we can continue programming and even expand it without doing that.
Right.
So that was the choice that was made. So if our budget were to fail and we had to operate under a contingent budget, it wouldn't affect the tax levy. The tax levy wasn't being increased anyway.
Right.
What it would affect, though, is our ability to offer things for the students and community. Unfortunately, like student supplies, if students should be expected to be able to supply certain things for themselves, we're not allowed to purchase them under a contingent budget.
Right.
So just
The
silly things that we take for
The
granted.
contingency budget does not affect are the contractual obligations.
Correct.
The salaries, the benefit, the majority of the
Yes.
budget really
Exactly.
is the same, whether it's an approved budget or a contingency budget. Those are all contractual.
Correct.
So, and that's by state reg. That's not the district saying,
No, it
that's.
is all regulated.
It's all regulated.
Yep, and if we had contingency budget, unfortunately, it would reduce our ability to transport some of the students we currently do, because we would have to stay by the state guidelines of 1.5 miles. And,
Right.
Right, so, and we
It's
do.
one thing if you're in Florida. 1.5 miles
Correct.
is something else in
Yes.
January in Niagara Falls.
It is, especially for little ones.
Oh, yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
And we would not be able to purchase our new smart boards, because the state considers equipment non-contingent expense. So we would have to remove that. And hopefully that doesn't come to fruition, and the capital improvements at the Community Education Center would also have to be removed from the budget. And again, this is a breakdown of what the contingency budget would look like. If you looked at capital, you would see the capital improvements line would be gone in the contingency budget. You would see another big reduction in the program side, and that would be for all of the equipment that we plan to purchase for teaching and learning. So that's the
Right.
smart boards, any additional laptops or desktop computers that we have in our purchasing plan. The property tax report card, we are, again, this is regulated, we have to provide this information. It just basically shows what we're requesting to spend, the $164,895,787, an increase from current year to the 22-23 is 7.67%. It also shows that the levy remains stable. There is no increase. And it's on line I, it does show you that we could have raised the tax levy almost $1.3 million without needing a supermajority. And again, we are choosing not to do that. We don't feel it's good for the community.
Right.
We feel we can provide good services, maintain some outstanding program, and still expand on that as well without doing so.
Well, we should, it's worth noting, I think, too, that unlike, I think, almost any other district, literally any other district in Western New York,
I think so.
we live here. We as
Yes.
employees, we live here. We send our children to the schools. We pay those taxes.
Yes.
So a lot of the salaries and the benefits that are given, that are earned by the staff, stay in the community. And there's something to be said for that.
That's a great point, because I don't know of many other districts where that's the case.
Right.
And so I don't know how committed some people are,
Right.
to maintaining a great program for their own community.
Right.
And this is the property tax report card continued. It just gives a breakdown of our current reserves, our savings, and any intended use for the upcoming year. Again, you can see we have a reserve for workers' comp with no intended use. For the upcoming year, we only plan to use some money from our debt service reserve, which is prescribed
Right.
in the funding of that reserve. And we don't plan to use any others. And again, this is the board, the superintendent, and everyone involved being very good stewards of public money and keeping us in a position that we will not be facing a big cliff when the
Right.
federal stimulus money goes away.
Right. and I think it's proven what a good job and what an efficient job your office is doing, and the superintendent and the board, in that, you know, as any district, we keep going through audit after audit after audit. And so far, everybody's said, you're doing a great job, have a nice day. I mean, there's been no significant findings.
No, there haven't.
It's amazing.
And we're actually very proud of that.
You should be. It's a huge amount of money to keep track of as exactly as the district does and the board does.
And we're very strongly regulated.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's always a lot of eyes on us, which I have to say isn't a bad thing.
It's
That's
not a bad thing.
Really nice thing. And when auditors come in, we actually learn from them each time.
I'm
we
sure.
always learn
Sure.
something. So it just helps us to get better. So
That's great.
Yeah, and it puts us in the position we're at. This is our budget notice. Now, this notice went out to the public. I got mine just over the weekend in Our Schools
Okay.
newsletter. So if you haven't received yours yet, I'm sure you'll have it any day. This is, again, regulated by the state. We have to put this out. It basically shows all the information you've already been shown in different slides. It just condenses it all to a single notice. And it also, we have to mention the basic STAR savings. So for primary homeowners who get the basic STAR exemption, the average savings for 22-23 will be $417. And transportation, now these are multi-year contracts, but we are obligated to put a notice in that reassures everyone that the monies budgeted for transportation in a single year are only the cost of that year's transportation.
Right.
Even though the contracts cover multiple years.
Right.
Yes. So. And salary disclosures, again, we are
Obliged.
yes, to disclose any salaries in excess of $150,000. And there is also a tax exemption impact report. This is provided by the assessor's office, and it just demonstrates which parties have exemptions on property in the city and the total of that value. That's a 2-page document. And then this is the proposition. This is what the public will actually be voting on. They're going to vote on if we are allowed to spend $164,895,787 and to levy the necessary tax. And again, the necessary tax levy is remaining stable without any increase.
No increase.
And this is the date and time of the vote from noon to 9, and you have all that information for everyone.
I do. So I want to throw a little bit of information out there because, you know, I'm in the clerk's office, obviously, getting some questions. So here are some FAQs. Absentee ballots are in the mail now. If you are registered with the county as a permanently disabled voter, a voter who always gets an absentee, you will automatically get one from us as well. You don't have to take any action. If you want an absentee ballot and you're not on that list, you contact me. I will mail you or hand you, as the case may be, an application for an absentee ballot. When I get it back, I can issue the ballot, and you return it to me by 5 o'clock on the 17th. This year, as in the last couple of years, hesitancy around being in public because of COVID is a valid reason to get an absentee ballot, so that answers that question. Now, in terms of the Board of Education, we have a little bit of an unusual situation this year, although not unheard of. We have 2 vacancies on the board. One of those vacancies is for a full 5-year term, just like always. The other vacancy is the remainder of a term previously held by another individual. Dr. Barstis resigned from that term in June, and so the remainder of that term would go from the day after the vote, May 18th, to June 2023. So the individual getting the most votes will serve 5 years beginning July 1 and going out 5 years to June of whatever 5 years is from now. The second highest individual will be able to take office on May 18th and serve until June of 2023, because that's when that previous term would have expired. We have 5 individuals running. They're drawn at random as to how they will appear on the ballot. It's very technical. We cut up pieces of paper and we fill them up and we put them in a little plastic jug, and somebody not associated with the election pulls them out at random, and that's how we get our ordering on the ballot. So your individuals as they will appear are Portland Jackson, Vincent J. Kinsemi, Michael Capizzi Jr., Rodney Sheard, and Gwendolyn Streeter Walker. So you will be able to vote for up to 2 of those individuals, and of course there's always a write-in space. So that's how that's going to work, and it is noon to 9 at your general election polling sites. Wherever you vote for the mayor, the president, or whatever else, that's where you're going to vote on this as well.
Yes, and Judy, I appreciate you taking the time to explain that, because I get a lot of questions about candidates and who's running, and I always say you should contact the district clerk. Or,
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I know in our schools they have a nice biography about all of the candidates that I read over the weekend, and even though I'm a little more familiar with them, there were items in there I wasn't aware of.
Right.
So it's always nice to read about them and see who they are.
Absolutely. It's an elected office, and it's a very local office. So,
Absolutely.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure, it's easy enough to find out information about these people. It is in our schools, and certainly they're all out in the community as well.
Yes.
But that's what you're going to want to do there. This year, I'm excited about this. We are trotting right into the 21st century with our electronic sign-in for voting, just like the county has done the last election or 2, where we will no longer have the big clunky poll books and all of that. It'll be right on the iPad, easy to do. You do not have to be able to use an iPad to vote. Our election workers will do that. All you have to do is be able to say, this is my name, this is my birth date, this is where I live, and sign your name, just like always. So it's going to be a much smoother process, and I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited about it.
I am too.
Yeah.
And I saw the presentation, and it looks great. It
Yeah.
looks very, very nice for our voters. I think it'll help move people in and out a little more
Yes.
quickly as well.
Yes.
Because everybody's either rushing to work, coming
Right.
from work when they're going to
Right,
vote.
or at this
So-
time of year 2, it's, the kids have a baseball game, or there's a concert or an art show, or people are always running. May is we all look forward to May, right? Because the sun's going to come out. And then when May gets here, it's like, oh, I can't wait for May to be over, between weddings and confirmations and baseball games and graduations and Mother's Day. It's like, when do we
That's a
get to
lot.
sit down?
I know.
But not yet.
And I do appreciate you having me here to discuss the budget, but also I wanted to mention that there is a more detailed budget
Yes.
document available. It's available at your office.
Sure
It's
is.
available at both public libraries and at any of the district buildings.
And there's information also on the website. So this, I think, will live on our YouTube station.
Yep.
And also on the website, under Budget Vote 22-23, there's information, there's the names of the candidates, there's the tax report card is there, probably your PowerPoint
Yes,
probably I'll
it'll be
put
there.
up there.
Yes.
So, and if you have questions, that's why we're there. Call us. Don't be at all shy about picking up the phone and saying, I have a question. The receptionist will direct you to Becky or to myself or whomever else is the appropriate individual to answer your questions. Did we cover it?
I believe we have, and I appreciate it. And like I said, there's more detailed information available. You can always contact us.
Absolutely.
And our contact information is also on the website. And I really appreciate everyone considering getting out to vote this year. The most important thing we can do is inform our community and invite them to participate. And I think that speaks volumes to the outcome of the election.
Absolutely. And as we're taping this today, tomorrow, May 5th, will be our Is that tomorrow?
No, that's Thursday.
In 2 days.
Thursday.
May 5th will be
Yeah.
our public hearing on the budget. So
Yes.
that is always live streamed, as all our board meetings are. Or you can come on down to 630 66th Street. You're always welcome to any Board of Education meeting, and we are open and, you know,
Yep.
taking spectators. It's a fun time.
I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Becky. Thanks for coming in, and thanks to the OSC. I have to say thanks always to Rich Moranto. This is my last go-round with him as he heads into retirement, so best to you, Rich. Thank you so much for watching. Catch us online, check us on the website, and we'll see you May 17th, noon to 9, general election polling places. I'm Judy Glasser with Becky Holliday. Have a great day.